Good morning. Looks like we're live here. How's it going, Joe?
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well.
Good.
Here with my daughter, Lucia.
I see her, and she is just gorgeous. Good morning, girlfriend. How are you? So, did you get a chance to watch Star Trek Discovery last night?
I did not. Anything interesting happen?
It was great, man. It was visually stunning. The story was, kept me connected to the show. But the dialogue was really kind of hard to follow because they're doing all this techno speak
Okay.
and all of that kind of thing. But it's a winner. It's a winner.
Actually, I haven't watched Star Trek really since The Next Generation way back in the day, so I should maybe I'll.
Oh man, you got a lot to catch up on. I've been binge watching it. I can't. Just a lot of the stuff I just can't watch, on the stuff on Netflix. I'm thinking about discontinuing my. So the only thing I can stomach sometimes. I mean, there are a few good things there, but not.
People talk about about Star Wars as Star Trek rather, as a representation of what communism might look like.
That's what I think. No money. Everybody's equality. People are doing their thing because they like to do it, not because they're getting paid. There's not only international unity, there's interplanetary unity.
Mm-hmm.
That is galactic wide and well, at least one sector of the a galaxy. Anyway, so it's been an interesting week in DC. The shutdown continues. Doesn't look like Trump's going to be invited to do a State of the Union. And
man, that's a huge deal. I was really, I think it's great that show of resistance. Like, if you're not going to take responsibility for
the hell with you.
Yeah,
right. Absolutely. So the government strike is still going on, and the Communist Party on our website at cpusa.org issued a statement entitled Unity, Support the Government Workers. Now, why are we supporting government workers? I mean, they are, after all, part of the bureaucracy. And, we're not in favor of bureaucracy, so why support them?
Well, first of all, these are workers who are, in the best case, furloughed, locked out without pay, and in the worst case, forced to work without pay and with no idea of when they're going to be.
Didn't they call that slavery back in the day?
Yeah, seems like, this country has a really long and sordid history of slavery, convict leasing, prison labor, wage theft. You can't just make people work without paying them, and to see the president of the United States openly embracing the worst and most shameful and most vicious part of capitalism, that's.
And you know what got me? Trump ordered, 40, 60,000 back in order to ease the burden without pay. I mean, so whose burden is he easing? I didn't get the logic of that.
No, it's an attempt to make sure people's tax returns can get processed so that the Republican Party doesn't have to take the heat for this shutdown. They're trying to keep the fallout away from themselves.
That's a really important point. And this shutdown also has a racist edge. That the public sector is the largest employer of African Americans in general, and that but for the public sector, the federal government being a big part of that, the wage level, which is still below that of the general population, the general white population, would be much lower. To the extent that the equality, it's in these jobs, and so for So
unions in general and public sector unions in particular have been a huge driver of sort of the push for economic equality for African Americans and African American women, particularly in the public sector.
and you know, the Republicans see this as a bastion of support for the Democratic Party, you know, and therefore part of their anti-union drive, you know, like in Wisconsin under Scott Walker, was precisely to break the back of those unions, you know, so that they could guarantee their political electoral posture in the country. And that's what all that was about, you know.
And here's a kind of a sort of bigger perspective as well. You know, the working class fights for democracy, not just political democracy through elections, but also economic democracy, democracy in the workplace, democracy in society as a whole. And when public sector unions stand up for their rights as workers, they're also standing up for a government that provides services to the people, for good schools, for a society that works, that's not, you know, ground into the dirt by the exactions of the capitalist class.
Very important point. And here's another point. You know, Trump and Bannon and them jokers, they have this concept that they call the deconstruction of the administrative state. And even that son of a gun in Brazil has taken up that call. And by that, they mean, you know, shutting down the Department of Housing, shutting down the Environmental Protection Agency, shutting down the Labor Department, shutting down the State Department, so on and so forth. They argue that it's not needed. And so if the government shuts down, hey, them boys don't care, you know, shut it down. You know, that's what we're planning to do anyhow. So this is what is going on. Public workers are an important part of the working class, and we want to give them our every support.
Just like in Los Angeles, where teachers went out on strike.
By the way,
not just asking obviously for, you know, for better pay, benefits, better conditions for themselves, but also better schools, better programs, more resources for the students.
Lower classroom size. You don't want 40 students per class. What kind of education can go on?
Yeah, more funding for special education. I was a special education teacher. It's a huge issue, and special education students who receive special education services are, you know, among the hardest hit by austerity, privatization, budget cuts, all of that.
And our comrades in Los Angeles have written a statement in support of those workers. It's called the UTA has had enough. It's on our website at cpusa.org, cpusa.org. And we encourage you to check it out. We got a lot of comments on that story, didn't we, Scott?
You know, I haven't looked at the comments, but that's good. I hope people do comment, even if you disagree with us. Comment. Hopefully, we'll be able to get back to you and have a discussion.
Yeah, just respond to what's there. You know, don't go on these long diatribes about Stalin and all that kind of thing. We ain't got nothing to do with Stalin. We're in the United States, not Russia. And,
yeah, that's right. We see it.
We're not responsible for any of those things. And to the extent that they took place, we have separated ourselves from it. Y'all did a webinar last week called 100 Years of Labor History.
Yeah. It was great, recognizing and celebrating the fact that the Communist Party has been part of fighting for, supporting the labor movement in the United States since its founding in 1919. You know, highlighting some of the ways that some of the contributions that we made, like realizing that you know, unemployed people were also part of the working class, and bring together employed and unemployed. Fighting for the for racial unity and integration of the labor movement, things like that. So this was it was a great webinar. We got a lot of questions. Unfortunately, weren't able to answer all of them, but hope the discussion continues.
That's a really important issue because it was the Communist Party that helped organize the CIO, the Congress of Industrial Organizations, helped lead the Little Steel strike, the Ford sit-down strike, and the foundation of a number of other unions, the Fur and Leather Workers Union. You can go on. And I'm glad you made the point about fighting for unity, because the party saw the fight for equality and against racism as central to social progress, and for that reason got very involved in the fight to defend the Scottsboro.
Right, yeah, I've seen pictures of trade union activists, marching, carrying signs, free the, back in the day they called them the Scottsboro Boys. Now we say Scottsboro 9?
Scottsboro Defendants.
Scottsboro Defendants.
They were young men, not boys.
Yes, they were not boys.
Right. And that fight continues today. It took place in the 60s against the George Meany leadership of the AFL-CIO, which they used to call the AFL-CIA back then, because the international department was very involved in some really wicked stuff all over the world. And we fought against the Clinton administration and their welfare deform, that neoliberal, attack on the working class, all up through today, and the fight for 15 and so on and so forth. So we encourage you to go to our website at cpusa.org and check it out. You are watching This Week at CPUSA. What else do we have on the website?
We've got an article up about why fixing capitalism is not enough. This is a really important piece. It makes the point basically that a lot of the problems we're facing, it's not because capitalism's working the wrong way. It's working exactly as it's supposed to. The problems are built into it. It's built into the way our society, our economy are organized. And one of those problems is alienation. Our work, as Marx says, confronts us as something outside ourselves.
You're talking about Marx's theory of alienation, which was put forward in the 1844 manuscript. Yep. I take it. Go on.
Yeah. So just this idea that, we go to work, we pour our labor into something, but it's not part of us. It's disconnected from us. It's
taken from us, right? Taken
from us, and it becomes something actually that is turned against us, in fact. So just like a concrete example, automation is something that hurts the working class currently under capitalism. Workers build all those machines, but they then become the instruments through which our labor is devalued, through which people are laid off. And that's a broader social problem as well. It's not just a workplace one. So check out that article. I'm not doing it justice in this description. And it's a real important contribution.
It's called Why Fixing Capitalism is Not Enough. And it also, it's basically a critique of conservative, liberal, and even progressive approaches to the critique of capitalism. It's a wonderful piece of writing, and we encourage you to check it out. And then finally, Marxist. We have a Marxist IQ up on myth. What's the title of it?
Ideology and Capitalist Myths, I believe.
What the hell are they talking about? We talking about in that? Are they talking about like the Grecian myths?
Almost.
Myths, or the Christian myths?
The capitalist class tells us a lot of stories, and I think it tells itself stories too. Things like they're the job creators, right? That they're, we depend on them for our jobs, or the idea that
wait, stop there for a second. Wasn't it even Abraham Lincoln that said labor is prior to and independent of capital? Is that what you get at?
But they've either forgotten that or buried it or whatever, and especially the party that likes to call themselves the party of Lincoln don't seem to have much regard for labor at all. Their whole trickle down idea is based on this idea that you give more money to the rich, and then they're supposed to, use it to create jobs and raise salaries. And well, we've seen since 1980 or so how what the fruits of that have been. So,
well, the idea may be that we're living in a free enterprise society where
there's no such thing as a free market.
Not much enterprise, huh?
Not much free enterprise, and not much. And people talk about the free market, which is also a myth. There are, markets shaped by and under the control of the capitalist class, or after a socialist revolution, under the control of the working class.
And right now it's controlled by big transnational monopolies, who they control everything that's produced. They control at the prices that it's sold at, and they drive smaller capitalists, out of business.
And on this question of the free market, one of the things that really strikes me is the example of Cuba. A lot of people who claim to be defenders of the free market point to Cuba as an example of the failure of socialism. Look how poor Cuba is. What they don't tell you is that the United States has maintained an embargo on Cuba that prevents it from trading not only with us, but with firms in other countries.
Right, penalizes them. Right.
55 years now. So to make it look like the free market or whatever, you have to totally deform and denature anything like free participation in trade.
Right. Well, that's a lot of content that we got up this week at cpusa.org. So we encourage you to visit it, visit our Facebook page, and let us know what you think. We'll be back next week with another production of This Week at the Communist Party. So thank you for watching. And hey, if you get a chance, share this video, let your friends, family, neighbors, boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, partners, everybody and their mama and daddy know about it. Spread the word. Okay, so that does it. Scott, I'll see you next week.
See you next week, Joe.
Don't hang